I was born in the bread chamber of Germany, the most eastern part, called East Prussia, a long time ago, in case you're wondering. Life was absolutely wonderful. Summers were spent at the Baltic Sea, swimming, at my grandparents' farm. My dad had a leather good business, took us to church. They were members of the Emmanuel Baptist Church, a large church. He was the organist. Life was wonderful. My dad was drafted, and very quickly, nations around the world perked up their ears. That leader by the name of Hitler, he's not up to anything good. We have to do something about him. So what are we going to do? We're going to drop bombs on Germany. Okay, so the Russians and the British alike bombed our city. Night after night, we had to rush into the bomb shelter. Night after night, the city was burning. My mom's friend came from out of town, a young preacher's wife, and said, I see the city burning here all the time. You have to get out of here, but where are we going to go? She said, well, my dad is a widower now, and he has this little farm near Berlin. Now that's smack in the middle of Germany. And the Russians will never get that far. So take the children, you and the 4 children, 1 year old, 4 years old, 7 years old, and I 10, and my mom's mother-in-law, and go there and he'll take you in. We knocked on the door. He opened the door. I'm Emmy Goodhart. Your daughter wrote to me and told you that we were coming. My daughter, is she still alive? Is she alive? Yes, she's alive. She plans to come later. Life was peaceful, wonderful. For 5 months, we could sleep every night peacefully. And suddenly there was thunder. But Germany doesn't have thunder in January of 1945. What could that be? Somebody who had been through World War I said, those are troops, those are the Russians, they're coming. They're after Hitler, they are trying to get to Berlin. It was decided, the government promised mothers and children will be taken to safety, but there will be trains waiting for you. There were no trains. The Nazis took off with the trains. The noise got louder and louder and louder. Flags were ripped up, white sheets were ripped up. Let's surrender, surrender. Surrender to whom? To the enemy? Yes, we have to surrender. Maybe we can save our town of 5,000 people that way. Neighbors started coming into the house. Mr. Lehman, they said to the preacher, oh, we are afraid, maybe please come in. They came in, more and more people, 20 people in the room. Suddenly we heard tanks, the cobblestones were rumbling. I looked across the lake, a whole street was aflame. Could I die? Suddenly, shots ringing out in the street. Oh, teach us to pray, teach us to pray. You mean you don't know how to pray? Those who knew how to pray, prayed. And the preacher would take Psalm 91, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge, my strength, my God, in whom will I trust. Surely he shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He will cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust, and so on. And please, praying, everybody praying. Doors being broken open. Soldiers rushing in. We're soldiers, they're soldiers with their guns pointed at us. There are no soldiers here. This went on day in, day out. Russians, the enemy, the communists have arrived in Germany, in our town. What are we going to do? Nothing but praying. Nothing helps but praying. Life began to be a little calmer. The graves were opened, the tombstones ripped apart. Death didn't mean anything to communism. And by the way, we hear this word communism. so often these days in the course of 1 week. But you know, it's a big cover-up. It's called progressive, and it's called socialist. Have you heard those terms? That means communism. So we were all huddled together, night after night, night after night. Moms who didn't know how to pray killed their children, committed suicide. Others jumped into the lake. A lady pushed her children into the lake and committed suicide. What was it to do if you didn't know the Lord? My mom prayed instead. One day we heard, however, Germany kaput, Germany kaput. The Russians were jubilant. Oh, they had murdered enough, they had shot enough people in town. Germany kaput, but what can that be? We didn't know for quite a while. Nothing happened. Raping of women continued, lawlessness, no government, no stores, no police, nothing. Just turmoil, nothing but turmoil. We lived like that for another whole year until we decided to escape and ended up in a Berlin refugee camp. The first camp happened to be a Russian camp. Oh no, we're not going to stay there and sleep on the cement floor. We were going to go to the American camp. There we at least had straws on our slabs of wood. There, and I'd like to thank you and your grandparents and your great-grandparents for the soup you provided for us. If you wouldn't have done that, we would have starved to death, even after we had escaped from communism. We finally ended up in West Germany in another camp, 3 years, sleeping on straw, and straw gets all kinds of bugs and things. So my aunt came to visit from America. She had immigrated in 1921 in order to take care of her uncle's 8 children whose mom had died in childbirth. She was here. She came to visit us in Germany. She worked at the Lebenssaal mission, very, very little income, just a little bit to get by. But she saved money, worked in Florida to come and visit us. And she said, well, I see things are not going well for you. Oh, what happened to my dad? Well, after more than 7.5 years, we were united. 7.5 years. For 3 years, we didn't know whether he was alive. And the same for him. He had no clue whether we were alive. And very few families were reunited. And why were they reunited? My mom knew how to pray. My dad knew how to pray. And we children were taught to pray. And my aunt said, I have a sponsor for you, pointing at me. You have to come to America. Maybe you can help financially for the family. You're going to be a governess and you should come. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. We're finally reunited as a family and you want me to leave? I don't want to leave. Well, 40-foot waves brought me to America. And I saw the Statue of Liberty on the morning of my 22nd birthday. America, America, the country that had been talked about, dreamed about, described. I was collecting stamps, saw the Statue of Liberty and all these fancy things on postage stamps. I'm supposed to go there, but I don't want to go there. So my song was, Lord, you know the way. I don't know it. But then I decided to get my paperwork ready. Maybe I will pass inspection in Germany, and maybe America find me worthy to take me in. But, Lord, you know I don't really want to go, but if you want me to go, I'll go. So, my first impression, New York City. Whoa, I didn't like those cemeteries. The high buildings on Long Island. I said to my aunt, how many people are living in these big houses? Oh, she said, they're for one family. I said, you're kidding me. One family? I ended up in those big homes. I took care of 3 wild little American boys, 24 hours a day for a whole year in order to pay my voyage back and send some money to my folks. And America was just the most shocking place because of the freedom. When we lived under communism, nothing changed for us. I know my aunt and my cousins, their property was taken away. You own nothing when they come in, folks. Remember that when you hear socialism. Please remember that you own nothing. You don't own your life. They tell you whether you are worth living or not, whether you are worth dying or not. Nothing, nothing. Your big churches, freedom to come to church, worship. I was amazed. I was simply amazed. And the freedom we have to this day. And I like to thank you Americans and your relatives for what you have done for me personally. My husband and I were at Normandy Beach, not the Normandy Beach with all the grave sites, but a little bit farther north near Cannes. He went to a museum while I decided to go to the beach. I sat at the beach. High dunes, very high dunes, war machinery, and this was just in this century, not too many years ago, war machinery still sticking out of the sand, war machinery still in the ocean. I sat there all by myself. And I thought, that's what America did for me, to rescue me from an evil regime. And I'd like to thank you. And if you know a veteran from the Second World War, please thank them in my stead, because everybody here tells me nobody has ever said thank you to me. Well, why not? Thank you for what you have done. I'm a flag-waving American, and to this day, I cannot say the pledge without crying. I want to read something to you very quickly. Perhaps you've heard of it. It's been around since 1919, called the Communist Rules for Revolution. Now put your mind in gear and see if any of these things might be happening in this country at this time. Okay. So that was captured by the Allied forces in 1919, 101 years ago. This was their plan. Let's see if that works into our government somehow. Number A, corrupt the young, get them away from religion, get them interested in sex, make them superficial, destroy their ruggedness. Get people's minds off their government by focusing their attention on athletics, sexy books, plays, and other trivialities. Divide the people into hostile groups by constantly harping on controversial matters of no importance. Always preach democracy, but seize power as fast and as ruthlessly as possible. Written in 1919. By encouraging government extravagance, destroy its credit, produce fear of inflation and rising prices and general discontent, foment unnecessary strikes in vital industry, encourage civil disorders, and foster a lenient and soft attitude on the part of government toward such disorders. Have any of these things come true in the last 2 months or so? In our, what I call a little hiccup in America, this is just a little hiccup, folks. We have to wake up. By specious argument caused the breakdown of the old moral virtues, honesty, sobriety, continence, faith, and pledged word ruggedness. Did any of these things ring a bell? If they didn't, you might study up on what's going on in our country and go and vote. Voting, folks. Don't sit home and say somebody else will do it. Oh, I don't like it, as Pastor mentioned this morning. Oh, I don't like that guy. I don't like him. We have a choice still. Still, we will not have a choice later. Thank you very much. I'm sorry.